Hey, composing gloves here, and today we're covering ring modulation. As you can tell, pretty excited about this. So let's talk about this. What is ring modulation? Where did it come from? Well, back in the day, they were like, hey, bro, dude, we got pretty boring sounds. We need ways to make them more interesting. And so they were like, dude, let's use amplitude and modulate that jazz. So they were like, okay, amplitude modulation. We take a signal, like a sine wave, and we turn the volume up and down at an audio rate. And if we turn it up fast enough, if we turn it up and down 1,000 times per second, we're gonna hear 1,000 hertz in our signal. Not that it's gonna hurt. We're just gonna hear 1,000 cycles per second. So it was like, oh, wow, that sounds pretty cool. So they're like, what's going on here? Well, they said, well, I think I know what's going on. If we modulate it by 1,000 hertz, I think this is what, I'm not sure if this is how it happened, but this is in my head. The guy was probably like, dude, man, bro, I think if we take 100 hertz and modulate it amplitude wise by 1,000 times a second, so 1,000 hertz, I think what's happening is if we take it and add these two together, we're gonna get 1,010. I mean 1,100. 1,100. Holy cow, 1,100. And then if we subtract 100 from 1,000, we get 900. I think we're gonna end up with those two tones. I was like, dude, man, bro, I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. And he said, well, what if it's like negative 900? What if it's that instead? Because sometimes we end up with negative numbers. You get plus and minus the sum and difference between the two frequencies. He said, dude, it doesn't matter because it's going to oscillate still at a 900 times a second. So you're still going to hear it as 900. And he's like, he should have had a V8. And that's how that happened. So that's my rendition of it anyways. So what's ring modulation? Well, they said they did it and they're like, oh man, dude, but we still have that 100 hertz tone in there. Like that sucks jazz because our electronic equipment isn't that great. So they said, they have one of those light bulb moments. Boo! He's like, I have an idea. And he built this series. It looks sort of like a ring. I believe he used diodes, a series of diodes. And he said, if you do amplitude modulation with this ring, there will be no signal left if you modulate it all the way. So if you do 100%, no more original signal, just modulated signal. He said, oh, for reals? And ring modulation was born. So you probably want to see this in action, right? I want to see it in action. So what do you got to do? First, you got to answer RM mode, which stands for really modulated mode. Just kidding. It's ring modulation. I mean, if I got you on that, this isn't looking good. So what are we going to do first? Well, first, let's turn our ratios off on 1 and 2 because we're going to use 1 and 2. And you say, okay, guy, dude, bro, you saying this is true? I want to see some proof. You're like, oh, okay, I'll show you some proof. So if we come up to 100 hertz, all right, so we're going to set our first oscillator at 100 hertz. If we play any note, we get 100 hertz. Nothing shocker there. Oh, my speakers are on. Now, if we go over to operator 2, let's make it 100 hertz. Okay, let's do something. No, let's make it 50 first. We'll do that one next. So we have 50. So ideally, we'll get 100 plus 50, so 150, and we'll get 100 minus 50, so just 50. So if we do that, so right now, without modulation, we got 100 hertz with modulation. So we're going to modulate 2 by 1. Now, the modulation routing is the exact same as the routing in frequency modulation. So I'm betting on you knowing the frequency modulation. You wouldn't watch that series because you want to use this to its most powerful effect. But this should be okay on its own. Just so you know, the routing, though, is still the same. So I also cover it in the Matrix video in this series. Also, the routing in the RM, like if we do this, does not affect our matrix here. But if we route down here, those things carry over. So just so you know, anything in this box, let me shade it right there, that box is unaffected. They are two separate. Every other knob is shared between the two. So we have 100. So now we're going to expect those two 50 hertz and 150 hertz. So that's modulated 100%. It don't work if it's not 100. Like it'll still work, but it won't. We'll still get that middle tone, which the whole point is we want to get rid of it. Now, for these days, we just want to be creative. But if we do that, what the junk, dude? There's two tones there. And look at this. 50, 150. Dude, did I just say, I told you the truth. I told you I was telling you the truth. You didn't believe me. You said it was a lie. So, okay, this is really cool. Now, what can we do with this? What more can we do? Well, right now we're just using two simple waves, two simple sine waves. What if one is a saw wave? Or triangle wave. That's a triangle wave. Saw wave. Well, that looks like that. We got a bunch of sidebands. Look at all these things. Man, that is a lot of sidebands. So what are we going to do about that? Well, what happens when we modulate with this? Well, you get the first sideband gets calculated, then the second sideband, then the third sideband, then the fourth sideband. As a result, you get a whole load of sidebands, a whole bunch of them. It doesn't use the slope or differential of change or none of that crap that FM synthesis uses. So the sideband's really important. They're buds with sidebands are buddies with single waves like this. They hang out together. Each one, they take this one sine wave visits each sideband and says, "Hey, add and subtract from me, man." And they do it, and they create these little sideband babies. So if we play it, now it's modulated. And look at that. We get sort of things in between because they tend to overlap. Now we could get aliasing. Might be saying, what's aliasing? Well, dude, it's what happens when frequencies, like you kick them out and they come back to try and bite you. So we could turn up our oversampling to deal with that. If you really do want to know what aliasing is, because that was not an adequate description, was go check out my digital audio basics aliasing video. Talks about that there. So as you can see, we did have aliasing. Did you see that? Did you see what oversampling did? Oh, we didn't have aliasing. I don't know what I was talking about. I must have touched something. So again, at 100%, anywhere in the middle, our original signal will be mixed together with our other signal, and our modulated signal will not be all that loud. Now, this could have a huge impact on a variety of things. Now, I want to do this all in one big video because ring modulation is really simple, and if you understand frequency modulation, it should be relatively easy to grasp because frequency modulation uses a similar thing for sidebands, only their sidebands are nuts because you use the difference in change to do things. So, okay, well, that's really interesting, dude, man, bro. What else can I do with this? Well, what happens if I feed it back into itself? Something really weird kind of happens. Like, hey, that's a saw wave. Whoa, 100% just disappears? Like, what's up, man? Like, what's that all about? Well, let's just put in our equation. So we're putting our saw wave in, and so it's going to produce it. Now, the amplitude, as you can see, goes down as we go down. That's something you should be aware of, is the amplitude is, wow, that was a little weird. The amplitude does not stay the same. It goes down over time, and it could sum at different places. It's a little more. I neglected to include the amplitude and phase and all that other sound stuff. You know, it's whatever. But for reals though, like this is something that you need to be aware of. The amplitude does not evenly sum. So when we go up, we're taking our sideband and we're adding it to littler ratios of our signal. So you get sum plus, sum minus, sum plus, sum minus, sum plus, sum minus. And then when we reach the top on a single tone, the 100 minus 100, it'll completely cancel out. The ratio will reach its equalness and it will just shut off, just turn off. So that's my reasoning on the subject anyways. This is sort of a self-drawn conclusion, just so you know. This isn't like I read this on this page, and this guy's like an expert in RM, because I've never met an expert in RM before. But yeah, so that's that. So when you add them together, 100 minus 100, it'll go up. You'll get more spectrum and more spectrum and more spectrum. I don't know why it doesn't produce 100 plus 100. I don't know why it doesn't do that. So maybe that's a question you can answer. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at this slightly wrong. So, you know, just telling you what I know. So, okay, so we have this thing figured out. Now, if we do it at a ratio, of course, things get quite complicated quite fast. But what if I ring modulate 2 by 3? What about 3? Let's make 3 at 10. Well, let's make it at 2. That's what we get. And so it's turning on and off the 2 sum tones that it's got going on. If we move it up, get to audio rate land. So you see, we can sort of spread out our spectrum. So that's really interesting. If we do it in serial, we'll get a bunch of these. Sounds like a Nitro Fun song that I know. I could think it's called Turbo Penguin, except for, of course, it's not the whole nice chorusy pad thing he used. I know that, but you know, it's got the same sort of feel. So now you know what he might have used. Maybe it was ring modulation. I personally think it was just a filter, an LFO filter, which is I'm willing to bet it is. Now, if we come over here, so that's serial. So 4 goes into 3, 3 goes into 2. What about in parallel? So let's turn them on in parallel real quick. Look at that. Higher up, these are going to turn into timbres. And remember, each sideband individually happens. So we're going to get these ridiculous changes in timbres. So first we'll do low ratios. So, okay, here we go. 3. Now see, again, these cancel out because the ratios, the way they add up, it's weird, man. But you could spread things out using this method. So that's really interesting. I want to give you a pseudo FM RM sort of tip after this. So what if we make these much faster? So we make this one, let's make it a ratio now, so way faster. And let's make this a saw wave or a triangle wave. And then, okay, now we'll do 3. On 3, we're gonna, we'll do another in parallel. You can see that everything's being derived from this one source though, so that's an important thing to know. I'm just gonna alt click this, make it a ratio. So really cool. Okay. So we can do high ratios and we'll get more timbre textures. Let's really quick do one of those. Now we could probably be dealing with aliasing. I don't know. Aliasing tends to be much less of a problem with RM. Okay, so that's cool. So what did you say you were going to give me an FM RM tip? Okay, well, here it is. You may have a problem with, let's say you're doing FM, and you're like, I want a sine wave being modulated by a triangle wave, but I want it at a high ratio, like freaking 64. And I already know. I'm going to turn this up a little bit. See, that's the timbre you were going for. Like, that was it. This is your dream right here. This is your dream tone. But you notice that there's all these spaces. This is one that wave candy would be good for. So there's all these spaces in between your stuff. You say, I want stuff there because it sounds sort of barren. I want a more full tone. I want it to eat all the room in my mix. So you're going to say, okay, I know what ring modulation is. Well, geez, what if I ring modulate that? Then it'll spread out. We'll get the sum and difference. And if I do it by a little bit, we'll get a whole bunch of different things. So you might use hertz instead, because some people, they don't know what this does. So they'll just use ratio for everything. And as you do that, as you hit notes that are higher, the numbers are going to get much bigger. And even ring modulation will produce tones that are really low and really high. So you'll fill up everything but the part you're trying to fill up. And so yeah, this is just stuff that people who don't know what these things do. And so, yeah, so let's do like a difference of 20 hertz. And let me go back to my arm. As you can see, go back to arm land. Oh, I changed. I know what I did. So one thing you also need to be aware of is you don't want to change what you were doing with your original tone. So we got it back. That's our dream tone right there. Okay, so I'm going to RM now. I'm going to use 3 to do this because I'm not using 3. And we're going to do it by something tiny, like a difference of, let's go 30. So difference of 30 hertz. So we'll get sidebands plus and minus 30 on every single one of our little harmonics right there. How great will that be? And so look at that. We do 50 hertz. You see they spread out. There we go. It's more full. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. Yeah, this sounds like a doctor's office. So, you guys probably like, what doctor did you go see? So, yeah, that's that. Now, part of this is just that super ridiculous high ratio I used. But yeah, you can, and of course you could compress and do a whole bunch of stuff after too. Maybe this is the tone you want, but now you can manipulate that dynamics of the tone, which is still arguably affecting the frequency response. Well, technically it absolutely is, but it doesn't really matter for what you're probably thinking of. So that's that. It works. You've got it going. It does what you want. That's a few different uses for RM. If you have any questions about RM, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.